Sometimes a painting looks like it's all about color, but it's actually being held together by something quieter and much more powerful. Hi, I'm Kathleen, and I help artists build the skills and structure to paint with confidence. And I'm here today in my barn studio to look at some paintings and do some critiques for students. The next one's for Leslie. She sent in a floral painting with an intention that I thought initially might conflict with her painting. Leslie's painting is full of beautiful high chroma color, and her intention for the painting is to have a calm painting. So I spent a lot of time thinking about it to figure out exactly why it felt like it was working to me. And I think I've got some answers. So I'm going to let you listen in on my critique with Leslie now. Hey, Leslie, I am looking at your recent painting, your floral still life, which is an oil, an 8 by 11 oil. And I'm going to have a look at it through the eyes of the elements and answer some questions that you had and give you my impressions. So let's go. And I want to start with your intention for the painting. And you said that your intention was calmness. And I really thought a lot about that. I've been sitting with this painting for a while now and trying to figure it out because it's a lot more complicated than one would think just looking at it, right? I'll explain that further. So, what's working? I'm going to give you my first impression. And wow, color, right? Color is the first impression, I think, of anyone looking at this painting. It is the dominant element. It is where your emphasis is on color. So, color, intense color, and calmness may seem a little out of place, right? And I've been thinking about that a lot with this painting. How do we have a beautiful, colorful painting that evokes calmness, right? So we'll talk about that. The next thing that I want to do is to look at the black and white of this painting. So what do we see here? Do we see light, middle, and dark values creating form? Yes. What is revealed by the black and white? A lot of soft edges, right? And you know what that tells me? And I think this photo of your painting in black and white is the key to your painting, really. It shows your value structure that is very much intact and it is very strong. And it leans towards a high key painting, mostly mid and light values with that all important balancing of the darker values in there. If we didn't have those darker values, the painting would be absolutely flat. But you're able to get away with lighter values overall by having this subordinate area of darker value. And it works so beautifully. Let's look at composition. The emphasis, we said, is on color, right? That is the dominant element throughout. It's not line, it's not shape. There is some great texture in here, but I think that we can all agree that your emphasis is color. So let's look at the composition in terms of color harmony, which I think is really very interesting. And I'm going to switch back to a little chart of color theory. This is what I think color theory is about in a painting, and it's so simple. To get color balance in your painting, you just have to consider the three components of color: hue, value, and chroma. And let's look at your painting through the eyes of each, right? Is all of the colors on the color spectrum? And where does your painting align? And I think that you have a dominance in the cool tones of your painting. You've also got a really nice balance up here with the orange. So where we do have a dominance of, so we'll say cool, and you have a subordinate of warm. With the chroma, at first glance, looking at your painting, one would think it is all high chroma. I feel that it is mostly high chroma, but there are some subtle balances of lower chroma in the painting as well. So I'm going to say we've got a dominance of high chroma with a subordinate level of smaller, lower chroma. You've got nothing that's over here in that area of the really gray. And then value. We've got mostly mid values, right? We said, remember we said we showed that slight subordinate area of higher value in the painting. To sum everything up, let's go back. So we've got a cool dominance with a balance of complement. This is very pleasing to the human eye. In chroma, we have got a high chroma dominance with a balance of some lower chroma. And then in the values, we've got a mid, I would say low to mid value range, and then a balance of a subordinate level of higher values or darker values, more like it, right? So this is why this painting is very hard to, I think it's very hard to do for a painter. And I don't know if you know how good this painting is and how hard this painting is. This could have easily become too sweet, too overwhelming, too not cohesive, and not work. But it works. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about it because it really works so well. So let's continue on and think about how might we make it even better. So I think that one area that we can maybe make it even better is we could think about a focal point, right? Right now we've got no really area of where our eye goes. I think our eye maybe goes up the vase a bit to the light, right? And so one place that we can put that focal point is with this flower. We can give this flower some dominance with some sharper edges and brighter color, perhaps. I'm using a really high chroma green within that white. And I don't have your reference, so you're going to be able to create this a little bit more interestingly than I am. And I'm just making it up. But do you see how we know that's our focal point now, right? Definitely. And you could throw a little bit, just kind of going back if you want, but let's leave it alone. Yeah. So that immediately becomes your focal point with your eye going up this way. Love it. You have a good sense of space. We know what is the foreground, middle ground, and background. Might put just a little bit of something in there to continue that line. Leslie, the only thing else that I might do would be to do some shape carving and work on edges, adding to that artistry. So what I like to do is go back in with the background and poke it in to your positive areas of your painting, refine the shapes, make them more interesting. And you've done that. I see you've got this green kind of poking through this beautiful orange over here that's doing such a great job of being the complement of the gorgeous blues. Let's poke a little bit more air into some of these shapes. I want to have these kind of all be different, right? And interesting, like they would be in nature, right? Maybe we'll put a little blue in here. No, all I'm doing is just refining just a little bit, just a little. It doesn't need much at all. This painting does not need much at all. It is working so well on its own. This background is beautifully done. I really like these bits here. This dark green that you made is the perfect lower chroma foil for all of the higher chroma. And I know that you mentioned that you had a hard time differentiating between the greens in the vase and the greens in the background. And I think that's one of the strengths, is that how they all go together. And they blend together and they make this lovely soft edge that is so painterly. So this green right here is telling me that it's in the sun because it's such a bright green, right? So I like that. What would happen if it wasn't such a bright green? What would happen if this was all in the shadow? Let's have a look. That's not so bad either, but let's go back. Yeah. What if we had a little bit more of both in there? Just a little bit of something there hitting the light, but just a bit. I don't know. It's up to you. It's up to how much. I know you have mentioned it, so I wanted to address it. And you might even have a bit of green right there because it's next to a petal that seems to be in the light as well. All right, so what about, yeah, I just love all this. Before I move on, I just want to tell you how much I love all that part. What about this? Good job really not making this too detailed, right? It's not the focal point. I think it could benefit from just some shape enhancement as well. Let's try to see if that works, right? So let's straighten out that shape right there. No, that's not the light. But this, I like that. I like that. It just defined it a little bit more. Bits of warmth. Maybe I'll put a little of this up here. So this is telling me that it's in the shadow. So I think it's okay like that. In fact, I like how it balances with this area a little bit. But I don't want to do any more, Leslie. I think that it's just so lovely. I see that is probably a reflection, a reflected area right here and right there, very subtle. Your texture is very thoughtful in maintaining the quality of the delicate flowers, and you didn't overwork it. I love an underworked painting. I love that the viewer can meander their way through the painting and figure out what's going on. So I'm going to leave it here and tell you, great job. In the end, what's working in this painting? So much is working. Your color is working, and it's working because of your value structure. And you know what? I want to show you one other thing that, or maybe a couple other things that I pulled out here. Look at this chart. This is a scale of spectrum values, right? For all of our colors on the spectrum. And what this chart shows is it put them next to a value scale right here, going from white to black. And it's showing you where yellow is, right? Yellow is a lighter value, but you know what? So is this green and this orange. And those were two colors that you used a lot of. And it's why it reads like this, right? Why it reads so light, because you've got pure high chroma color in there, but its innate value is low on the value scale. So you can have a very high chroma painting that is very low on the value scale. And you know who else who did that so beautifully and was a pioneer in that area was Monet, right? He's got all of this great color in there, but it translates to mostly mid values, at mid and lower values is the dominant value scale, but yet very colorful. And then you have that anchor of the darker areas, which you do need in these types of paintings to anchor it just slightly enough. And it is a delicate balance, right? And I think that's why you should be commended, because your painting is a delicate balance, of color and value, and it works. Now that I've popped back here, I wonder, I used green here, but now that I've come back here and I see this green, I wonder if it would work if you just used the same purplish tones that you have been using up here to keep it a little more unified. Yeah, I like that. I think I like that. So I'll leave it to you. Great job. Thank you so much for sharing. And I want to come back to where we started with your intention. And Is your painting a success when you think of it in terms of what you tried to do? You tried to create a calm painting. And we talked about how the calm can be at odds with a colorful painting, possibly. But in this case, in this high key painting, it works because a high key painting with all of those lower and middle values do naturally evoke that sense of calm, that really pleasing look like the Impressionist got. So well done, Leslie. Thank you for sharing, and I look forward to seeing any slight changes that you make to complete your painting.